Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 16 operettas and musicals I couldn't live without. And I have, limited myself to one per group, more or less. I mean, the truth is I could just live on Gilbert and Sullivan for the rest of my life. But, what can I say? This is the list that came to me, as usual, when I do these things, without having to think too hard. I just wanted to see what would pop out based on my childhood, much of which I owe to Mom, who you've met, of course, in a couple videos, because she loved musical theater and she used to haul me out of school, which was just fabulous, to go to New York or to the theater in the Showboat Theater in New Haven. Back in the day, because all these Broadway musicals had tryouts in New Haven, so you could see them before they actually got to Broadway. And so we used to go to the Showboat, or we'd go into New York, and we'd see a show a few times a year. And then Mom had her record collection, which was full of soundtrack recordings, and oh, what great stuff it was. So here they are. This is what first immediately popped into my head, based largely on the music that I first encountered when I was a kid. Some of it was later, but, this first one actually was much later, but most of the others were earlier. First, Happy End by Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht. Oh, it's got so many good songs in it. The End, Hosanna Rockefeller and the Bilbao song and Surabaya Johnny and I just like zillions of absolutely wonderful, wonderful songs. What is it? The Road to Mandalay, I think, is in there, and I have no idea what goes on in it. It's one of those anti-capitalist rants or something. I don't know. But the songs are so terrific. I've never seen a production of it. I would really like to. It would be marvelous. I mean, it's one of, I think it's better than the Threepenny Opera. I really do. I just think that Weill was firing on all cylinders when he did it. Next, Candide, Leonard Bernstein. Yeah. I think it's his best work, along with West Side Story. They're 6 in one, half dozen in the other. They are fabulous works, absolutely fabulous. But Candide is the wittiest. It's the funniest. It has the widest range of stylistic reference. 475 people worked on the book, as I pointed out in my recent video about that awful LSO Candide under Marin Alsop. But, it doesn't matter. It only makes the music better, because the words are all very witty. I mean, they're excellent, but oh, the music, the numbers in it that just drive me wild. Glitter and be gay, and I'm easily assimilated, and what's the use? And oh, just fabulous, fabulous stuff. Next, The Roar of the Greasepaint, The Smell of the Crowd, with Anthony Newley, and my mom had this record. It was one of her house cleaning discs. She wasn't dusting. That was Schubert's Unfinished Symphony. I always smelled Lemon Pledge whenever I heard the Unfinished Symphony. But The Roar of the Greasepaint was, I don't know, maybe it was vacuuming or doing laundry or something. Mom worked. Mom was not it's kind of fascinating, actually, to consider just how much she was able to do back in those days. I mean, she worked full time, and when we were growing up, she wasn't working in the school system. She founded a nursery school, which she ran in connection with our synagogue, which was a tremendous amount of work. And she had dinner on the table at 6 and cleaned the house, too. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, I never have that much energy. Anyway, The Roar of the Greasepaint was one of her favorite musicals. Apparently, it wasn't terribly successful, but I know every single song in it by heart, and I hear them in my head still. They're just wonderful songs. And is it not really a show about anything? It's British. It's about class consciousness. It's about rich versus poor. It's upstairs, downstairs kind of sort of thing, But the music is just tremendous. The Pirates of Penzance. Oh, wow. Well, see, this was the first Gilbert and Sullivan I actually sang in, because we did a Gilbert and Sullivan production every year when I was in high school. The Mikado is maybe a greater masterpiece. I don't know. But I was in this one. I was Samuel. And, I knew all the parts, but I was Samuel. I got a couple solo lines. For he is a major general, stuff like that. Here's your crowbar. And I can do the whole thing, and I won't torment you any further My voice is shot anyway, and even when it isn't shot, it's shot. So, as so many of you kindly point out in the comments, I really should stop singing. But the Pirates of Penzance is so much fun. And the real fun thing about it is it's takeoffs on Verdi and Italian opera with cat-like tread, with bangs, with cat-like tread, bang! Upon their way we steal. It's Aida, da 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 da, bang! Right? That's where they got it from. Or "Oh False One, You Have Deceived Me." It's the duet. It's just marvelous. So we've got that stuff. Then we have a little night music. It's Sondheim at his absolute finest. The words are brilliant. The music is brilliant. It has "Send in the Clowns," which is one of his most iconic numbers, even though no one has any clue what it's about. It's just a fantastic musical. And "Liaisons." Hermione Gingold doing "Liaisons." What could be greater than that? What an amazingly fun number that is. So there's that one. Then we've got Orpheus in the Underworld by Offenbach, of course, because it has the can. And when I was a kid, we had Gaieté Parisienne. We didn't have Orpheus in the Underworld, but we had the can. And Mom used to play the can. Even more fascinatingly, sorry, Mom used to do the can. And that was special. Believe me, I never forgot it. It's one of those images burned into my youthful brain forevermore. And so when I found out that the can was actually the chorus of like the demons in hell, that only made it so much more fun. And I couldn't wait to hear the complete operetta. And I've been in love with it ever since. Anything Goes. This was another show that we did when I was in high school. Cole Porter. And wow, what a great musical. Another piece of incredible wit and charm with fantastic tunes. It's delightful. It's got Anything Goes, and it's delightful. It's delicious. I get no kick from cocaine. I get a kick out of you. Just one hit number after another. It's absolutely miraculous. Fiddler on the Roof. You're going to say, yeah, okay, he's doing that because he's Jewish. Actually, no. I'm doing it because that was one of the shows that I saw at the Showboat with Mom, and it was so beautiful and haunting. I didn't really understand it at the time. I was very young. Later, I saw the movie with Topol as Tevye, and I got it a little bit more. But what a great number that one is! It's a great musical, and it was very funny because Fiddler on the Roof was, the iconic Jewish musical. I was supposed to know from it, even when I didn't know from it, and I don't know how many times when I was growing up, I ran into friends of my parents, or, I had kids, right? And friends that were children my age, and I would go to their house for dinner or something, or we would be playing, and their parents would say, "Oh, nice to meet you. I saw Fiddler on the Roof," as if I was supposed to somehow gather something from that disclosure. I really have no idea what that was supposed to mean. I guess it meant that they were tolerant and curious about these strange critters rolling around called Jews. Not many of them. There were only 2 or 3 of them in my entire school. But when I was in grammar school, but still, they saw Fiddler on the Roof. So there you go. So I finally saw Fiddler on the Roof. It's a great musical, absolutely great musical. Again, with a zillion knockout numbers in it. Man of La Mancha. Now, Man of La Mancha got going at the Goodspeed Opera House in Essex, Connecticut. And I actually have a fascinating time at the Goodspeed Opera House. In Essex, because it's right next to Gillette Castle, the castle built by the actor William Gillette, who was, I think, famous for portraying Sherlock Holmes and other people like that, British actor. And he built this weird castle in Connecticut, at the Connecticut River, on the Connecticut River. And we were there once. At one point, I'm trying to remember how close they were to each other. Maybe mixing up two things. But the Goodspeed Opera House is where Man of La Mancha got started. And I was on a trip down the Connecticut River with a biology class from Yale University, whose professor was a friend of my parents. So he would take his kids and us down with him on these trips. We had a great time canoeing down the Connecticut River. And in near the Goodspeed Opera House, in any case, in Gillette Castle, we had permission. It's a park now. We had permission to spend the evening in Gillette Castle because we were camping out. We were all disgusting. And so we were at Gillette Castle and we heard Nixon resign. Nixon's resignation speech. I remember listening to it on the radio in the great room of Gillette Castle. And somehow the Goodspeed Opera House was right near there. And that's where Man of La Mancha got started. It's Don Quixote. It's a fabulous musical with Impossible Dream. To dream the impossible dream. That's the big number there. And it again was a musical that seemed not to have a lot of it didn't get a lot of play originally. It's very operatic. There's a lot of music in it. And I never saw it, actually. I heard it. I had the soundtrack. And I love the soundtrack because my mom had the soundtrack and I thought it was phenomenal. And I remember Impossible Dream used to be, remember the monster car things that people used to watch? They're still out there somewhere, I know. But there was this one guy who used to, they had these people who would do stunts with cars. And one of them was going up a ramp and driving on two wheels. Just two wheels. And this guy would try and go all the way around this track on just two wheels. And he would do that to the tune of Impossible Dream, because most of the time he wouldn't make it. Every so often the car would fall back or over or something. It never quite got there, but at one point I think it did. We used to watch him every year, usually at my grandfather's house, doing the Impossible Dream as he drove around in his car. I remember that quite vividly. So Man of La Mancha's there. Once Upon a Mattress by Mary Rogers, of the daughter of Richard Rogers of Rodgers and Hammerstein fame. It's light. It's a light musical. It's done in a lot of school productions because it doesn't require a tremendous amount of, talent. It's not true. It does require talent because it was the vehicle that gave Carol Burnett her start. But it has some of the funniest songs I've ever heard. They're just the Swamps of Home, and the best is Shy. I'm shy. I'm so terribly shy. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's funny as hell. The story is The Princess and the Pea. And it's the lightest and most enjoyable of light entertainment. It requires not a single sentient thought to enjoy it. You just watch it and giggle. And I'm always good for that. What do you have? Oh, The Merry Widow. Yes, we have to have The Merry Widow because Mahler quoted it in the finale of his Seventh Symphony. Mahler loved The Merry Widow, but he couldn't be seen to actually love The Merry Widow. So he went to a music shop, allegedly to speak to one of his publishers about one of his works, while Alma was supposed to look through the score of The Merry Widow and memorize all the tunes so that she could play them back to Mahler when they got home. Oh, those were the days. But Lehar was great, and I have a wonderful Lehar story actually. That's a lot of fun. One of my friends back in my early days here in New York was Remy Farkas, who worked for Decca, who claimed to be the guy who fired John Culshaw. He thought it was the best thing he ever did, and in the interwar period, he was Giuseppe Di Stefano's brother-in-law, and a wonderful guy, wonderful guy, chain smoker who unfortunately passed away from lung cancer. But in any case, he ran, along with Pierre Bourdain, Orpheus Remarkable Recordings in Lexington Avenue when I first started working in the city in the 80s. And we were talking about, he was a big opera fan because he was Di Stefano's brother-in-law, but he also adored Zarzuela and Operetta and all that stuff. So we were talking about The Merry Widow, and he told me that one day Decca was making a recording, or somebody was, in the 40s, and he was the producer, and he went out there, and there was this old man this is like in the 40s, right, putting music on the orchestral stands, and it was way before the session was going to start, and so he said to me, he said to the guy, what's the music? What is it? And he said, it's the overture to The Merry Widow. And Remy said to him, there is no overture to The Merry Widow. There's just a prelude. It just begins. And he said, well, this is the overture to The Merry Widow. And Remy said, okay, fine. And he introduced himself. He said, hi, I'm Remy Farkas. And the guy looked at him and said, Franz Lehar, nice to meet you. So, yeah, he had cobbled together an overture to The Merry Widow. And there it was. But anyway, it's a delicious operetta, of course, about the battle of the sexes. And So much fun. My Fair Lady. I've Lerner and Lowe, right? Or I think it's Lerner and Lowe. I've never been able to get past Show Me. Never let me hear you say another word. There isn't one I haven't heard. It's one of the great, great musicals. The story, of course, is Pygmalion. It is another musical that consists of one fabulous number after another. They're all terrific. I used to sing them when I was a kid. I just adore it still. The movie, of course, featured Marnie Nixon doing the voice of Audrey Hepburn, but the actual show featured originally Julie Andrews and Rex Harrison. Wow, what a memory, and I still love it. Showboat. Well, this was a musical we didn't really know until John McGlynn did it on EMI, the complete Kern Hammerstein Showboat, and that was really a sensation. What a big, beefy, juicy musical that sucker is. It really was a piece that invented the American musical, a tremendous operatic thrill ride of a work. And it was such a wonderful piece that benefited from the rediscovery of the original parts and the period instrument movement as applied to the American musical theater. And there were just so many fantastic results of that. But the first was Showboat, and it still remains one of the best, absolutely one of the best. After that, Cabaret. Oh boy, with Joel Grey and Liza Minnelli. I mean, what is there not to love? An enormous selection of great tunes and a really powerful story. Wonderful story. Cabaret is what, Jerry Herman, I think, right? He did the music, if I'm not mistaken. And it's absolutely wonderful. Joel Grey was an incredibly talented actor who had, he was very, very popular in the 70s. When I was growing up. I mean, he was a real name, a real person. He did a movie called Man on a Swing, where he played a psychic who was involved in some sort of murder, and it was shot. One scene of it, anyway, was shot at the trailer park next to the Connecticut Post shopping mall, and so it was a big deal that Joel Grey was in Man on a Swing, and they had done it in Milford, so we were all. And so I was interested in Joel Grey, and then of course we had Cabaret, and he was starring in that as the master of ceremonies. He was fabulous, and of course Liza Minnelli was Liza Minnelli, so it was iconic. And then I have to have a Zarzuela, Moreno Toroba, Luisa Fernanda. The story is the typical, it's a love triangle thing that all works out in the end, but the music is just beautiful. I like Moreno Toroba. His guitar concerti are fabulous. I mean, it's just music that sort of exudes the joyful essence of Spain, and some of its sorrows as well. I don't know. My ancestors were supposedly Sephardic, according to my aunt. They escaped the Inquisition in the 15th century, so there's something Spanish in me somewhere, and I'm just a total sucker for Spanish music, especially this kind. I just melt. Even if the Spanish weren't too interested in keeping us around, it's still stuck. And last but not least, Carousel, which has You'll Never Walk Alone, the ballad that Jerry Lewis always sang at the end of the muscular dystrophy telethons. It's also a serious musical, a musical that's, the plot is kind of ridiculous. The guy dies and goes to heaven, and he gets one day to come back and sort of make things right with his wife, with whom he was rather brutal, and his daughter who hates him. And the music, it's Rodgers and Hammerstein at their absolute best, and it was fantastic. It was an epochal work in the history of American musical theater, but none of that matters because it's just the music I can't live without. The pieces that I love, that I grew up with, that still touch me, and that I just adore, even to this day. I was very happy to see John Wilson's new recording of Carousel, however, on Chandos, the complete thing, because it's magnificent. It's absolutely magnificent. And that, sort of put me back in touch with the piece, because I hadn't listened to it in a long time. and that's why it made this list. So there you have it, my friends. I'd like to have your 16 operettas and musicals that you can't live without, particularly if you do not come from the United States of America. This is an opportunity to put in some wonderful local pieces by, theatrical composers who may not be all that well known internationally. But if you love it, if you know it, please list it, because it'll give me and all of the rest of us something to hunt out and seek and enjoy and savor. It's a great opportunity, I think, to investigate some splendid lesser-known repertoire. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.